What's up, everybody? Marvel Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. And today, y'all, we are looking at X-Men issue number 14. This issue was released in September of 1965, and the cover date is November of 1965. And today, we are looking at the first appearance of the Sentinels. The Sentinels have been, for the longest time, one of the X-Men's greatest enemies, and they make their first appearance in this issue for the very first time. So we'll get to know exactly who the Sentinels are, what their main objective is, as well as how the X-Men are going to try to stop them. And so we're looking at a very classic tale here that is just very classic to the Silver Age as we continue to look at the Volume 1 series of X-Men. This issue was brought to you by Stan Lee, who wrote this issue, and Jack Kirby on the layouts, Jay Gavin helping as well with the art, Coletta here doing the inking, and then we have Artie Simek doing the lettering here. So, last issue, and the last two issues to be exact, the X-Men went up against Professor Xavier's stepbrother, none other than Juggernaut. And Juggernaut, he roughed them up pretty badly. And so what we open up here with this beginning of this issue is that the X-Men are doing some therapy here to heal their wounds, because Juggernaut definitely gave them a run for their money. And so that's what Professor Xavier is doing at the very beginning of this issue. And we see that as the X-Men are healing from their wounds from their battle with the Juggernaut in issues 12 and 13, we see here that now the X-Men are getting back in shape and they are better than ever. And so now that the X-Men are basically getting back to where they need to be with their strength, Professor Xavier is going to announce some very good news to all of the cast of the X-Men, and that is that they all need to take time for vacation. And they've well deserved it, because, they have gone up against the likes of Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They've gone up against the Juggernaut. It's about time that they finally get some peace and quiet. And we see the joy in all five of the members of the X-Men here, just how glad they are to hear that news. But meanwhile, we're going to be introduced to the antagonist of the story, and his name is Dr. Trask. Dr. Trask is a world-known scientist here who has discovered a way to eliminate mutants once for all. He has a vendetta to basically destroy mutants. He believes that mutants are a threat to mankind, and he's letting the press know that we need to stop treating mutants like they're just some other part of the human race. Actually, what we need to realize is that mutants are planning to take over the human race with their mutant powers. So they are a big threat, and we need to find a way to stop them. And so we see the Daily Globe prints all of this baloney out about mutants, saying that they're a menace. But meanwhile, the X-Men have no idea that this is going on. They're getting ready to go out and have a fun time on their well-deserved vacation. And we see that Warren Worthington III, none other than the Angel, is hiding his wings by having Bobby Drake here tape down his wings so that his parents has no idea that he has wings. We learn a little bit about the backstory of the Angel, and that he was off at military school when he discovered his mutant powers, and that he has not told his parents at all about his mutant abilities. They have no idea that their own son has wings like an angel. And so he's going to go visit his parents. Meanwhile, we see that Scott Summers is going to definitely go on his way for vacation, and he's going to use these special sunglasses that were given to him by Professor Xavier that will help him to protect the optic blast coming out through his eyes. Those glasses will serve for that purpose, so he doesn't have to walk around in his costume all the time. And we see that Hank McCoy is also going to get ready by putting on his street clothes, but he has to get some extra large shoes that will fit his humongous beast-like feet, hence the reason why he's called the Beast. Well, we know that Scott Summers is pretty much a loner a lot of the times, but we know for certain that he definitely has a huge crush on Jean Grey, but another member of the X-Men has a crush as well on Jean Grey, and that is the Angel. And the Angel beats Scott Summers to the punch here by asking Jean Grey to drive in his Mustang, and she agrees. And they ask, Scott, are you going to come along? Are you going to go to get on this train? He said, I am, but I'm going to take the train later. And so Professor Xavier sees all of the X-Men out, tells them to enjoy their well-deserved vacation. And we see right here something very interesting here, that the Angel says, the way Scott looked at Jean, am I imagining it? Or so we see that Angel is going to be fighting for the affections of Jean Grey here. And so we may see a little bit of a love triangle starting to form here within the X-Men concerning Jean Grey. But we'll worry about that later. Right now, we see that Scott Summers is going to be the last one to leave, and Professor Xavier definitely knows something's going on with Scott Summers. He's holding back his feelings for somebody, and he's definitely a lonesome person. He needs to open up more. Well, we see here that Professor Xavier is going to then open up the newspaper reading about the mutant menace, and he learns who's behind this, and this Dr. Bolivar Trask is the one that's coming out with all of these threats against mutants, painting a big picture that mutants are going to take over and humans are going to be slaves to the mutants. And so Professor Xavier gets this idea by calling this television crew, this television network, and tells them basically, hey, I want to go on debate on live television with Bolivar Trask. I want to debate him about the mutant threat, because I believe that mutants are not a threat at all, and that they can cope with humans as well. And they agree to it. So the next evening at this network, we see that we're going to see a live debate between Professor Xavier and Bolivar Trask. Now, none of the people know that Professor Xavier's a mutant. They just think that he is one of the greatest authorities in the field of education. And so while all this is taking place, Bolivar Trask is going to, counter what Professor Xavier said about humans and mutants getting along. And he says, with all due respect to Professor Xavier, he is blind to the terrible dangers around us. Or perhaps it is more than mere blindness. Perhaps the professor has an ulterior motive for his defense of mutants. At any rate, I've created a defense for mankind. And what is that defense? It is the introduction to the Sentinels. Good heavens, that's right. A huge fist is coming towards Professor Xavier. And here where we're going to be introduced to the Sentinels. They definitely look a lot different from the future versions of the Sentinels that will be introduced later in the series. But we see here that Bolivar Trask actually does not have full control of the Sentinels. The Sentinels, much like the artificial intelligence that's been created today, they think for themselves, and they have destined to rule mankind. They were programmed to protect humans, but in order to protect humans, they have come to the agreement that they need to rule mankind, and they zap Bolivar Trask, making him become unconscious. We see a code red is then sent to the X-Men through the psychic ability of Professor Xavier, alerting all 5 members of the X-Men. We see that Hank McCoy and Bobby Drake, the Beast and Iceman, are going to have to call a rain check here on this sudden date that Bobby Drake wanted to go on with Zelda. And so they're going to be the first 2 X-Men to go up against the Sentinels here. And meanwhile, we see that Warren Worthington III, the Angel, is going to have to break his dinner arrangement with his parents here by saying, look, I got to go. It's very important. You've always helped by being so patient and understanding. I'll come back later. And so he's going to go and fly to meet the location where Professor Xavier is calling for help. We see that the Sentinels are going to take Bolivar Trask and take him to their secret hideout here. Meanwhile, 1 Sentinel is left behind. Professor Xavier is trying his very best to stall these humans from, making them go haywire and panicking, but one guy tries to get away. Professor Xavier uses a mental force bolt to push him down so that he's not vaporized here. Iceman and Beast are going to show up, and they're going to try their best to take down Sentinel 3R, but they're trying very hard. But this Sentinel, and what we're going to learn about the Sentinels is that they are programmed specifically to counter all mutant abilities. Meanwhile, we see that Scott Summers is going to be, telling this cab driver, hurry up, I got to get to this location. Well, we see this turn that causes Cyclops' glasses to fall down, and part of his optic blast shoots out through the window. These humans are going to then say, hey, that must have been a mutant. But they learn real quick that Cyclops is in no hurry to deal with these guys. He has to meet this big threat. Cyclops is going to join Beast and Iceman, who are really struggling right now against this Sentinel. And they're going to have to use some teamwork here to take down this Sentinel. But we see that the Sentinel whacks Beast right up against the wall, causing him to go unconscious. And the Sentinel is just about to reach for Cyclops when all of a sudden the Sentinel just falls down. Just all of a sudden he becomes powerless. What just happened here? Well, we noticed that Professor Xavier has been listening in, and that Sentinel must have said something about Master Mold. Who is the Master Mold, or what is that about? We'll have to find out next issue. But we see here that Angel is going to come across these Sentinels who are taking their leader with him, and they're going to start firing at him with these heat rays. And the Angel is going to have to maneuver out of the threat here, as all but like 6 of these Sentinels are firing at him. Angel is then going to be magnetized on this train thanks to Marvel Girl, and she's going to come to the aid of the Angel, saving him from certain calamity here. And finally, what we're going to learn here is that Professor Xavier did in fact hear the word Master Mold, and because he is deciphering the language of the Sentinels and looking into their mental images, he has come across the secret hideout of the Sentinels, and the X-Men need to get there immediately. Beast and the rest of the X-Men, as well as Angel and Jean Grey, are going to learn exactly where the Sentinels are hiding out, and we're going to finally find out what the heck is going on here with these Sentinels to take their leader back to the base. They say that they want to create more Sentinels so that they can rule the human race, and they lock Bolivar Trask inside this room here. And he's like, "This is madness. You know it is forbidden for any Sentinels to enter here. You must listen to me. I am your friend." But the Sentinels say, "We need no friends. We are Sentinels. We were born to protect. Behold, an image appears upon our defense scanner screen. It's the X-Men, our enemies." The X-Men get out of their Rolls-Royce car here, and they're going to say, "What the heck? This looks like just a field of crabgrass. Are we sure we're in the right direction?" When all of a sudden we see a hill is opened up by this fortress beneath, and laser beams are fired right at the X-Men, and this is where we are going to leave off right off on a cliffhanger. What is going to happen with the X-Men as they confront the Sentinels? We're going to find all this out in issue number 15 as the X-Men come up against maybe their greatest threat ever, the Sentinels. I hope to see y'all there in issue number 15. Go ahead now, drop a like on this video, comment down below what do you think is going to happen next. I would love to hear your responses as to the first appearance of the Sentinels, and I will see y'all in the next one.